Hey there, I'm Thea Dudley, also known as the Credit Overlord, and welcome to LBM Talks Credit. We are the only podcast that talks trade credit in the lumber and building material space. Never miss an episode, stay tuned, and we're glad you're here. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of LBM Talks Credit. I am Thea Dudley, your host, also known as the Credit Overlord, and we have got an amazing episode for you today. I am so excited to have this guest on with us because we're talking about one of my favorite topics, not by choice, but because it seems to be just everywhere you look, fraud. We have talked about check fraud, ACH fraud, credit card fraud, and we're just going to wrap all of those up and throw in a couple of things maybe you haven't heard of and maybe some things you could do to straighten it out. So please give, all your full attention, a very warm welcome, Janet Hammel. I am so excited that you're here with us today.
Well, thank you very much, Thea. I was very happy to come on and give you the insider information. Again, my name is Janet Hammel. I have a unique piece into this industry because my husband works for Morsches Builders Mart, as you can see, and he has worked for them for over 30 years. And so from my experience from the credit union world and his experience from the lumber industry, it gives a unique experience that we can give and go over the different information that can help everyone with fraud prevention.
Well, poor Janet, I met her at the LBM Strategies conference last year in 2024. And, she was there with her husband and we're standing around talking. And I asked, hey, what do you do? And she said, well, I'm in banking. And we got to talking about fraud. And then I think I stalked her for the rest of the conference. And I think I look pitiful enough that I'm like, oh my gosh, you have so much good information. You need to come on and talk to the LBM credit community because this is a huge thing for us. So not only do we have Janet for an episode of LBM Talks Credit podcast, but she will be with us in March for our webinar. And we're going to be going over some more specific things and allow you to get some questions into us so that we can address whatever's going on out there. But let's jump in right out of the gate. Check fraud came back with such a vengeance. That old school stealing it out of the mailbox, the drop box, kind of wherever. And I love the post office where they're like, oh, it's, there's nothing to see here. There's no fraud here. It's like, yeah, honey, you too. There's, we've got some bad actors in there. And we talked about that in a previous episode. But now you've also got, in addition to the check washing, they're selling it on the dark web. But now there's ACH fraud. Credit card fraud has ramped up quite a bit. But, Janet, can you talk to the ACH fraud? Because that's something that I think people are just getting the opportunity to experience.
So with ACH fraud, honestly, everything on the bottom of a check is the same information for ACH. So it's your routing number, your account number. And if you're not paying attention to your balances, your accounts, what's going on through your corporate clearinghouses, you're going to lose money just like that. So yes, there are time frames that you can, with your financial institutions, go in and dispute your transactions. And that's super important because there are rules and regulations with that. And you do have a time frame. So it's super important. Just like with checks, you balance your checkbook, you're going to balance your register, you're going to balance your ACH transactions. There are faster payments that are coming through now. Unfortunately, those faster payment options do not have the same fraud protection as ACH, even though ACH is coming, the fraud with ACH is coming up.
Oh, it just feels like every time you turn around, there's something else for a business to be stressed out about or have to look into. So when you talk about faster payment methods, because it's such an instant gratification world. Everybody wants their money. It's just like anything. I was so upset during the pandemic when Amazon Prime was like not 2-hour delivery anymore. And it's like, next day, what am I, an animal? When am I I can't wait for my package. Right. So now you're talking about, we went to portals, we went to like Instapay, Zelle Money, all of this other stuff to get our money quicker. And now we're finding out, well, it is quicker, but there's some repercussions. But no matter what you do, there's that opportunity. So in your opinion, what is the best thing that somebody can do to help limit, regardless of what type of fraud it is? What is some of the best things they can do?
So there's not, I'll be honest, there's not one thing that you can do.
Ah.
I know. I wish it was, or everybody would be doing it. That's why the fraudsters are getting away with what they're getting away with. You have to make yourself and your business hard to get to we call it in the industry a hard target. You're basically making it difficult for them to take money from you. So by putting in, like, making sure that they can't get into your network, into your electronic transactions, if you're paying checks outbound, that you get some sort of service like positive pay or something of that nature. So your checks can only clear for what you've written them for. So they're not washing them and changing the dollar amounts. So it's this layered approach, just like you risk assess all of your financial process, just like you risk assess your drivers, your any other processes that you have in your industry, because it's a layered. You have to set your layers, and it's all these pieces, but you have to sit down and think like a criminal and go, okay, how can you get in? How can you take my money? But it takes all of us doing it. We all have to do it, because honestly, the financial industries, they're overloaded. And I know you all have felt this. You get a bad check, you take it to your prosecutor's office, and half the time it has to be such a dollar amount, or they're not even going to touch it, because guess what? They're running after killers and all these other people that have done really, really bad things. They're like, it's a bad check, but it's our money. Like, so, right? I mean, it's our money.
No, I've had that experience where the prosecutor's like, oh, Thea, they're like, it's not really enough. I'm like, it's a $30,000 check. Well, it's white collar crime. It's like, okay, but it's still crime, and it's $30,000. So to me, it is a lot of money. And like you said, they're going after, murderers and all this other, but it just feels counterintuitive that you have laws, and it's like, yeah, we're just going to be cool with it.
No, so that's why the layered approach works. And that's why looking into those processes and making sure that you're watching your own process and knowing, okay, if you take it to the prosecutor's office, and being proactive with the prosecutor's office and going, okay, so what will it take for you to prosecute someone that has a bad check? For example, locally, they have to have a driver's license information on it. They have to have more documentation involved with the transaction. So you have to be proactive to make sure that you can get help when something does happen to you. I say when, not if.
I love that you said when, because that's the other thing I hear a lot is, well, I know you keep talking about fraud, Thea, but it hasn't really happened to us. It's like, oh, honey, it's coming to a neighborhood near you. It is a matter of time. I know that the East Coast and the West Coast tend to get it before everybody else, and then it starts moving in. And before you know it, nobody's safe. You're just not. It happens just with your credit cards at home, where you'll look at a charge. It's like, I didn't buy this. I would never buy something for $1 or $2 on my credit card. They're doing that ping test to see if you'll catch it.
Correct. And honestly, most citizens of the United States have had their information stolen. And it more than 1 in 4, because of how many breaches have happened. And so if you haven't been proactive, you as an individual haven't been proactive to protect your own information, you're just making yourself more of a target. Now, when you go to your business, the executives in the industry have to be more cautious, because you are a target for what's called business email compromise. And that is your email, or someone trying to spoof your email and doing transactions that people think they're coming from you, but they're really not coming from you, or they're going to send you malware because you are the face of the industry. You are the face of your company. So they're going to do those types of things to see if they can get into your company or your electronic system at your place of business because of you. So it's again, a layered approach, and all kinds of, if you don't have an IT professional that helps you, please find one. There's lots of companies
out there. It's funny that you say that though too, Janet, because it is a big deal. And I've had a credit person call me, and they're like, hey, we had some of this going on. I'm like, well, what are you doing for cybersecurity? What education are you doing with your internal folks? Like, well, we tell people to be vigilant. It's like, that's like saying, here, don't put the top back on your beer when you're driving. That's not really helpful. that cybersecurity is such a big deal. And even with cybersecurity, some stuff gets through. I mean, there's all kinds of things that I'm almost afraid to click on anything from anyone I don't know because of that.
You're very, very accurate. There are even emails when I get from people, I'm like, I'm going to call them first from an outside number before I go clicking on that thing, because it happens. I mean, you'd be surprised. I mean, honestly, if you don't know someone that hasn't had their email hacked, that's amazing. It's really amazing. But it's those little things that part of your, and I call it a risk assessment because that's really what it is. Just like you're looking at a new customer, you're taking their credit, you're looking at their credit application. That's a risk assessment for that customer. You're going to do a risk assessment for your whole entire business as far as how easy it is to defraud you, whether it is through the paper, through electronic, through your cyber, walking into your business and plugging something into a computer. There's all kinds of ways. It is so scary, but it is there. And you were completely right when you say it comes from the coasts and comes in. However, we're all connected with computers. So
that's true. It could be from anywhere in the world. Seriously.
Correct.
And I think the thing that is really overwhelming to think about is you have to think of it as a twofold, because you had touched on payments going out. In credit, we always think about what's coming to us or what's not making it here, and how can I help my customers because I know this is such a problem. But it's also the money that we're sending out as a company. You talked about positive pay as one of the things that you can do to help prevent that. But if you're, I know companies that are like, no, I've got to write a check. I really want that. I want that. Almost like a CYA. I've got to have that paper trail. It's like, what really? The grocery stores, a lot of stores won't even, like Target, I think, stopped taking checks in July of last year, and Whole Foods doesn't do it anymore. And there's several other companies that they're like, we're just not doing checks anymore. It's just too much. There's too much risk. There's too much fraud. There's too much NSF. They're just not doing it.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, it takes a lot of time because you have to buy your check stock. That costs money. You have to print them. You have to have somebody on your side take care of the transactions. They have to have somebody on their side take care of their transactions. A lot of times you'll get a discount for electronic transactions, depending on what type of bulk situation you're dealing with. Checks, like I said, the bottom of the check has all your account information on it. So if that check gets lost in the mail and somebody else grabs a hold of it, check the news. There was postmen that were getting stabbed and their keys were being taken so that they could get a hold of everything in the blue box. So don't put your mail in the blue box. I mean, the stuff that happens, just Google. You'll see some scary stuff.
No, you start Googling that and it's like a rabbit hole you go down. It's like a vortex. And then pretty soon you're like, I'm just going to start paying people in turquoise beads and otter pelts because this is insane.
Yes.
But the fact that stores are moving away from that, and I understand why businesses are like, look, I still want to take checks because credit cards are so expensive. And we've had that conversation about the cost of money and what if you have to go back. And, I have one business that they had almost $500,000 stolen from them. And it took 2 years to claw all but 18,000 back, but it was over 1,000 man hours. And that's where, until it happens to you on a scale, it's not really quite as impactful. But even if you get one check stolen, you're vulnerable. And what have you done for it? So Janet, what are some things positive if you're paying checks out, moving to a positive pay, reaching out to your bank to say, hey, what do you have to offer? What can we do?
That is a big thing, making sure that you have a wonderful connection with your financial institution. Now, there's options out there. Now, I have talked to different people about the industry. I have been in the credit union industry for 28 years, and so I'm partial. But so I know.
Hey, smaller banks are nothing against Wells Fargo or any of the big guys,
no.
but but I equate them to like a Home Depot or a Lowe's.
Mm-hmm.
That's the type of service you're going to get. Where if I go into one of my independent lumber yards, it's like a credit union, or a local small bank, I'm going to get a much different banking experience. And I tend to get a little bit more empathy. I know going to, some of the larger banks and saying, hey, this check was stolen. And they're like, well, it's a bummer you have people in your company stealing. I'm like, well, I would love for people here to be that smart. It never made it here. We didn't get a chance to steal it because it didn't make it to us. And you have to get your customer to go in and, file the complaint and file the paperwork and ask for an investigation. And I think some of those larger banks get hit with so much of that their empathy level is just non-existent. Not everybody, but as a whole. And it's nice to be able to go, walk in and have them go, hey, Thea, it's like, I have issues, help me.
Well, and a lot of times your local branch will do a lot for you, but their hands are tied sometimes too. So you need to be proactive again and have these conversations before something happens. Know what your options are, know what you're supposed to be doing, know where your risks are. That knowledge is power, right? We've all heard about that. And so knowing, okay, if you had this type of fraud, if you've had this type of fraud, we're the experts. We're going to know what type of products and services you're using for your type of business. And so then we can assist you in saying, okay, well, with your credit card portfolio, we would suggest this, or we would suggest that. With your cards, definitely separate your payroll versus your accounts payable, or, do this versus do that. So then if something happens to this account, you have this one covered. It is a conversation. That's what we're here for. That's what that relationship is supposed to do for you. But I feel for the big banks and the big guys because they can't put the extra money into it because they're so large. But I'm telling you, we put a lot of effort into it. We do a lot of running around because there's people just like me and counterparts all over the United States that are doing everything that we can to stop the fraud. And the only way we will stop it is if everyone works on it together, whether it's in the industry, in the financial industry, or individuals themselves doing what they can to stop the fraudsters.
Well, what I love about what you just said is I heard free resource because we're all about what can we leverage? What can we do? So as a business, you probably have a relationship with your bank. That's a great starting point is what can we do? What do you recommend? What do you suggest? And then if you're working with a payment portal company, hey, what do you guys do? What else can we do to beef this up? Do we have an IT person that and I know a lot of times you have an IT person that's like, well, they're IT and they're also HR. So depending on what day it is, the different hat is on. I get it. Came from a family business and everybody had multiple hats, but it would be advisable to bring in a cybersecurity expert, even if you just bring them in to do an assessment of where your gaps and pain points are so that you do learn. And there's a lot of companies out there that'll do that. I think it's SC Archetype is one that's here in Myrtle Beach that they do a lot of that risk assessment and getting all of that lined up to be able, like you say, those layers. It's like getting dressed for cold weather. You start, just layering up. But I heard free and I just got really excited about that.
Yes, because they want your business. As a financial institution, we want the business. And so it is in our best interest as a financial institution to do what we can and we want to stop the fraud as well. So we want to give you the information beforehand because it only helps us too. And then it creates a better environment and just a better relationship. But again, it all is specific for each company because each company, depending on what your state laws are, depending on where, what size and what different vendors you're using, and they might have different suggestions because some institutions have different fraud monitoring programs than others.
So why do you think some companies are so, and we started to go down this rabbit hole and we got sidetracked somewhere else, but why are some companies still so enamored with, I have to write a check and I want to put it in the mail? I had one company that their check was stolen. And then they said, we'll put a replacement. I'm like, well, here's the portal. No, we'll put it in the mail. um, did we not see this show before? Why would you do that?
They fear change. I really do feel that there's so much change out there. And 2020 changed so much of our lives, and it really taught a lot of us to embrace it and really learn about how to do things differently. I mean, really, how many people get to work from home now that never got the opportunity? I'm in the Midwest, and so today it's, I think, 5 degrees outside today. And
Oh,
I know it's great, but kids never got to go to school from home before 2020.
oh, that's true.
And so now they can do that when the snow gets,
Yeah,
knee
they don't get
deep.
a snow day anymore. It's like,
No,
oh,
I know.
we're gonna go. It's like 2020 wrecked snow days for kids because now you're like, oh, baby, log in. You're gonna be fine.
Correct. Sorry. Get up. But that's what it is. It's they don't want to learn anything new. And I love that to a point where it works. It's covering what they do. They know how it works, and it is scary to learn something different. But that's what we have to do as financial institutions to help teach the new things and how it can't be scary and that there are new things out there. And that's, again, that relationship with your business. But it also is something where, as maybe the journal can do what they can to say, hey, these are different payment options. And I mean, I know we talk at home a lot about a lot of different things that come up. And I know one thing that come up was credit card interchange. Does that's a conversation that happens. So,
Well, and it happens every time any finance people get together. It doesn't matter, who it is. And I know they're high. And it's not that I'm in love with the credit card. It gives me a different, not that there's not credit card fraud. That's a whole nother topic, but there's a difference there where at least I have the money immediately. I've got it into my system and I don't have to worry about that other shoe dropping. And if I've set up my system correctly, especially if you're working with portals, whether it's through a bank or through a software service, you can set up to have that fraud alert. They'll pick up a lot of times on fraudulent activity and they'll deny the card. I love when someone doubles down and goes, well, I'll give you a different one. It's like, I don't think I want your different one. I kind of saw that coming already. It's like, we're not playing credit card roulette here. You just pick the one that goes through. But I know that those rates are high. There are things you can do to bring them down, but at some point you have to do the ROI on the cost of doing business. Correct. If the check takes me this long, if it takes 2 weeks or it never gets there and it has to be replaced and now we're at a month out or longer, because a lot of times a smaller businesses don't have the capital to go, well, I'll write you another one while I'm waiting for this investigation and seeing if I can claw this money back. They don't have it.
And those investigations, there are little checks. All the regulations with each one of these payment options are different. So checks have different timeframes versus credit cards versus ACH versus, all of them, they're separate and they're different. And so that's why knowledge is power. Again, having that conversation with your financial institution and understanding what will work for your business model and having that risk assessment again, and having a chance to go over the different processes and what you feel works well for your company in your state, in your area. It's just a big picture type process.
It's so frustrating because you hear, what I get out of it is it's a lot like lien law. It's such a state-driven type of thing. So I am so excited that you're going to be back with us in March and we're going to be doing a webinar where we can talk about specific things to ask about in a risk assessment, what you should be looking for, how you can approach it. Janet, I can't thank you enough for being with us. This community will just eat this up because we really want to stop it. We really want to protect, it's so hard to get those sales and to eke out that profit that you're like, I don't want to share it with some guy who is a really good thief. But if you could you just focus on using your powers for good and stop fighting me?
Right. We don't need Nigeria to get any more of our money. They're a great place, but correct. We're working hard for what we have. Yes.
Well, I don't know if I get one more like deposed prince of, some nation, of Zamunda. And, he wants to send me $3 million if I could just give him my bank account so he could launder it for me. I'm like, okay, someone must still be falling for these because they're still doing them.
Correct.
So I don't.
Oh, the Google. Okay, I'm telling you, the stuff that you can find. But I will tell you, the Federal Trade Commission has one of the best areas for information. It's the ftc.gov, and they give great information to businesses on business email compromise. That is a big one. And it attacks every industry, healthcare, financial institutions, the lumber industry, everyone. It hits them hard, and that's money out of everyone's pocket.
Well, I know when we will put a link to the FTC website. I'll have Sally put that in there. The other thing that has come up is that, construction is one of the industries, like you said, that's hardest hit because we do still use checks so much where it almost works against us.
Yes.
Yay. Go
Sorry.
us. Well, Janet, thank you. And thank your husband for allowing us to use his office.
Yes.
So
I kicked him out.
Us today. Poor guy. It's like, go walk the yard. You'll be fine. Go see if the trucks are back yet. Go load something. But we thank you for being here. Can't wait to talk to you again in March. And for everybody that's hung out with us, thanks again for another episode of LBM Talks Credit. You can find us every other Tuesday on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, you name it. And if you haven't heard yet, my new book, Credit Overlord, Credit Unleashed, was released Friday before last, and it's available on Amazon. So please check it out. Again, thank you, Janet, for joining us. Thanks, LBM community, for being with us. And we'll catch you in another couple weeks. And until then, we hope you're serious about your business because we are.